Over 1,360 horsepower for this monster here. Is this the next AMG Hypercar, so to speak, a Bugatti by Mercedes? Or does it give us an outlook of the next AMG GT in the electric version? We'll tell you all about it. You need to know about this special vehicle with Thomas Autogefühl in 4K, full screen and full length. Let's go. With a very distinctive front here, a little bit overlapping illumination around, and there will be cooling flaps underneath that open on demand. But the funny thing is that they open rather while charging and not while driving. There's an electric motor in the front, 2 electric motors in the rear, and charging will be possible with over 850 kilowatt, but not only as a peak, but also over a longer period of time. Mercedes or AMG is promising that you can recharge this vehicle here at the speed of normal fueling up a vehicle, like 400 kilometers or 250 miles in 5 minutes. It's at least 800 volt in the architecture. Then here this air gaps here where air can go out on the top parts. Very spectacular look here, and mixing this orange color with black contrasts, and even more spectacular here in the side. First of all, it's a rather long vehicle, 5 meters and 20 or 205 inches, because this is better for the aerodynamic efficiency, and the CD value is at 0.198, so below 0.2, and yeah, this is hardly achieved with any other series production car so far. We'll see what they make as a final car out of this very soon, and also tell you more about this at a later stage. So you can see this one here all trimmed to aerodynamics, and you can also see it at the wheels. For example, here, this is the open state at this moment. So here you can have cooling for the brakes, and it will either be open like this when you need the cooling, but just on demand. If you do not need this cooling, these blades here will be closed, that they're even more aerodynamic. You can see it right here, happening live as we speak. So at this moment here, it's closed again, carbon fiber use for more lightweight, and then you have even more aerodynamic efficiency. There again, it goes out when you really need this cooling. And this is a very important aspect here, because at the wheels there are always a lot of turbulences if you look at some measures in the wind channel and so on. So this makes a lot of difference actually. In the lower part here, there's a special paint here that can actually emit light. And this can be a charging demonstration, for example, that the car is signaling, hey, I am charging. But you could also maybe think of other purposes later on. You could also display a logo there, maybe, you know, in the race cars, like the names of the drivers. Maybe you can also do that with paint later on. And of course, you can think about not only using it in the lower part, but maybe also all over the car, if it's allowed in the respective country. You know, especially, for example, in the EU, they're really restricted as for the use of such stuff. On the Northern American market, you can do more with paint, you know, these golden reflective paints that are sometimes allowed in the US, but not in the EU. Yeah, so definitely playing more with light. Very fluid form here. This here, this cutout will be an air brake, that when you really need more braking performance, it can go up then. This is also something they thought of to improve the braking performance. Large logo also on top of the vehicle. And the rear, spectacular with these tube-style tail lamps here, 6 in total. And in the middle of that is another visualization or communication with the outside world. And there, for example, you can say, hey, when the car is charging, but you can also communicate even again with logos, or I mean, I'm also thinking about see you later, guys, or something like that. When you accelerate it out, there is no acceleration figure for this one here yet, but considering these power figures, over 1,000 kilowatts, so over 1,360 horsepower, you might expect some 2-something seconds or something like that. 2 electric motors in the rear, as said, that you have 1 per wheel basically, and there's also a new motor technology behind it. They call it axial flux, and that means that like the electric current goes in the same rotation as the wheel goes, and they save some room with that. They can make it smaller. They can also make the electric motors lighter. Yeah, and that's always a thing, especially with electric vehicles. When you think about, for example, using electric vehicles on the racetrack, they are heavy due to the battery weight. And here they also done some special things with the battery. For example, they have the cells and they make them higher, so the cooling fluid can reach the core of the battery or of the individual cell easier, so that you can keep it at a high performance level at all times, basically. It does not deny the weight of the battery. That's always the case, so you have to do some other countermeasures to bring the weight down. My experience is that on the racetrack, of course, weight plays even more role. But as you can see, this vehicle here does not have the 100% racetrack focus, but more like going on the German Autobahn, high speed, but in an efficient way. Because when it's so efficient as it is here right now, and also playing with the length, it's better for, let's say, fast Autobahn efficient driving than for racetrack where you need more downforce, with a large wing and so on and so on. So this is, so to speak, a technology carrier, and as it stands here right now, it is rather like a Mercedes, Bugatti or something like that, more hypercar. But what this car is rather doing, it is showing us also how the next electric AMG GT will somewhat look like, and also how it will somewhat function. Because at the end of the day, this is not supposed to be like they're building 10 cars for Formula One drivers. They rather want to build an AMG GT in an electric way that is also, let's say, somewhat accessible, but of course still in AMG pricing regions. We can also take a look at the interior. Because here we have the classic door handles that fold out, also all again in this orange paint. We can also actually, because it's actually already very well built, door closing sound, or you can hear actually the air coming out of the front by that. It's interesting. So there we go. And we have a lot of technology on the interior as well, and design, which is also showcasing us where the AMG design is going in the interior. Here, for example, these are the real mounts, how you attach the door, and this is then deliberately used and covered with AMG logos. This is a shrink paint here used on the inside, so a paint that you would use on a real engine block, a combustion engine block. And so you can also feel that surface. Then microfiber is used here, also with this laser cutting that the ambient lighting is shining through from behind in the checkered flag style. Once again, everything set to racing. These here are artificial silk materials. You can pour them to open the door or to close it again when you sit on the inside. So this is then similar to an animal-based silk, but an artificial one, produced in a more sustainable way, but more durable and also feels really nice and soft, and more of that is coming very soon. Steering wheel, Formula One style, rather flat top and bottom. You control the driving modes here also at the steering wheel, as we're used to from AMG vehicles. Also here some haptic control still, for example, also for the cruise control. And then here more of this shrink paint, where we have the motor block style or the engine block style also in the dashboard. Pretty cool. 12.3-inch instruments, soon more to the 14-inch infotainment. Seats, these are special bucket seats, and also with racetrack belts and so on. And you can see this one here feels and looks like animal leather, but it's also an artificial one. It's a biotech material, and they use actually old AMG GT3 tires from that, the residues, and combine it with so-called LabTech biopolymers, and then it gets this material, which is animal-free, more sustainable, and at the same time has double the durability. So the pulling force is actually doubled, like when you would stretch the material. And yeah, this is what I've been talking about. You can make better materials by technology and at the same time make it more animal friendly and sustainable. And AMG is also doing exactly this right now. So kudos to that. Underneath, you can make it more comfortable for your own body, because what we cannot see is under the surface materials. You can then, you need a body scanner for that, for the individual posture. You can actually individualize the pads for the bucket seats. So it's then adapted to your own body. And I was joking earlier, maybe saying like, okay, when they want to offer that to customers, every special flagship AMG store needs a 3D body scanner then. Maybe at some point like that. It's of course a racing atmosphere here in a way. Headroom is still there with 189, 6'2", but this is more than the concept building style of that vehicle. Yeah. it is nothing that would come in series production in the very exact seating position, but the design, this is what you can see here. I'm very certain that this will be how the future AMG GT in the electric way, the EV, will look like. And this is the first purpose-built AMG EV because they use this own new electric AMG platform. And this is the first vehicle that is on this platform. That's why it will also be soon a series production vehicle. So now I'm pulling this door towards me with the strap, and I can also, of course, hold on tight here. Microfiber used at the inside of the door, so it's really beautiful what they have done here material-wise, and they really transport this motorsport spirit. Although, as I said, this one is rather seen on the Autobahn, I would say. The top speed, by the way, is 360 kilometers an hour or 225 miles an hour. So this is more than in the Bugatti direction, definitely. By the way, here also real carbon fiber, even from the inside. There's no covering at the inside of the roof, and maybe you also don't need that. In the front end here, some microfiber. We also have some small sun visors here, for example, pretty cool. And the even most visible engine block style is here, again with the shrink paint, and then also really how a classic ICE engine block would look like. This is cool here with real aluminum and so on. So I think this interior concept tells us even more about the future AMG vehicles, and I think it works well because it is on the one hand a clean design, but it's also in a way functional. You still have the real shifting pedals here, for example, which will be then used for recuperation in the EV style. You have, for example, a manual volume jog on the steering wheel, drive mode selector, and so on. And also here, the emergency shut off button, like bang, when something goes wrong, bang, just hit this button. They talk of the axle flux motors. This more looks like the flux generator, right? Doesn't it? Yeah, pretty cool idea. And also here, how the illumination here, everything looks like that, as this would be like electric components, but this is just for design. But here again, how they play with the materials, like these, more open pore surfaces, and once again mixed in with this biotech leather. This is a pretty cool thing, So they, by the way, they really mimic the structure of animal leather, and they can basically do with it what they want. They can also create a microfiber surface out of it. So both the slick and the microfiber surface would be possible. And I think the cool idea is also that, if you scale that up, there are so many old tires in this world that you don't not only need to use AMG GT3 tires. You can use all the residual tires in the world to create this material, and you can recycle it again, going full circle. And if you now think about the ever-burning tire pile in Springfield, yeah, this would maybe be stopped burning because they can use these tires then. 14-inch infotainment. You can see it's turned towards me as a driver. Also beautiful ambient lighting here around, aluminum brush, and now I take over the camera from Leah, because then you can see how this screen is turned towards me. This is a demo mode at the moment here. Also signaling here one front axle flux motor, yeah, with the flux generator or capacitor, or how did they call it? And this on then again an animation of that one. Here the driver's perspective, once again with this Formula 1 style steering wheel. And they are also thinking about this special steering concept, steer-by-wire. We know it also from the Lexus RZ. Mercedes also wants to do it that you don't need to steer much, that you just need some steering angle, and then you can do from left to right from the tires and so on. This will be then here, for example, for the launch control, these small lights and the digital instruments. You can see the animation that you can, of course, also pick different stylings as for that. There's Leah doing the camera once again with the light, and also show us a small light again. Oh, yeah. There we go.
Right, yeah.
What do you think about these seat belts here? They look a little bit aggressive, right? But that's what you need in motorsports, right? To be kept tight. Maybe you can give us some light for the rear bench there.
Yeah.
Because it does have a rear bench somewhat, pretty dark and here in the back. But it's more like for the attachment of the seat belts at this moment. But it could also be, imagined that it has a real
Maybe
rear
for
bench, maybe for children. I don't see Isofix at this moment, you know. Yeah, but maybe at a later
Isofix.
stage. No Isofix. So visually, I think, especially in the front, it works very well, very spectacular. The question is what they really want to do with that. And as I said earlier, it looks like a super, or maybe even a hypercar with this performance here in like 360 kilometers an hour, 1,360 horsepower, and so on. But the more important thing is testing this new architecture for the next electric sports car. So rather than AMG GT, which then also needs some more downforce and not only trimmed on efficiency. This one here at the moment, basically the efficiency, high-speed autobahn, going straight vehicle, and then a final AMG GT on this new electric architecture will probably need, you know, maybe a little bit shorter, then also more with playing a little bit downforce and adaptive wing and so on and so on. So I'm really looking forward to your feedback if you rather like this one as the hypercar concept or if you rather looking towards next AMG GT then in the electric version. Tell me that in the comments. I think the interior progress is pretty cool because you can see, yeah, maybe this one is a little bit farther away from series production from the exterior, but the interior is already quite close from like how the design looks and also the future materials really going full circle, making it animal friendly, more sustainable also in the environmental sense, using old materials that are waste otherwise, and also giving a great quality to the customer with more durability. That's actually a very, very good concept. So a lot of interesting single things we see here with this vehicle. We'll keep you updated what will be the final result of it. And of course, you can still maybe give some feedback that AMG can also then take from this video and your comments. And now tune in to some Mercedes series production vehicles.